Okay, let's do it.
All right, I'm here with Nuno Costa. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
What's the background? What's your ethnicity for the Nuno?
Oh, Nuno, it's Portuguese. I was born in Portugal, so it's a very common Portuguese name. My brother's is even more weird. It's João, but he goes by John, so it's not as unusual. But then we actually have six names, and it's almost exactly the same. So mine's Nuno, his is João, and the rest of it is Álvaro Marreiro Jamaro Rodrigues Costa. Try to write that when you were a kid.
That's your full name?
That's my full name on my Portuguese passport. On my U.S. Documentation, I shortened it to just my first, middle, and last name.
What's your documentation? Are you a U.S. citizen?
I became a U.S. citizen in 2014, the same year we won the games. Yeah, it was a good fucking year. Excuse
Wow,
my
that
language.
that must have been what was more important for you, winning the CrossFit Games or becoming a U.S. citizen?
Ooh, man, I think becoming a U.S. citizen. I
Yeah?
think that was a more lifelong journey than the CrossFit Games was. And that same year is when I decided I was going to go to Brazil for an extended amount of time. So all that happened within the course of 12 months.
Big year. That was 2014.
That was a big year, 5 years ago.
So, I gave you the introduction prior to this, but one thing you mentioned is you are the fastest gay in the world. But
Yeah.
but that was a lie. You at one time on this planet were.
At one time I was for a long period of time from 2010 to 2018, and I got beat last year, and I was actually totally happy with the way that it went down. The guy ran a faster time and was super close. I think I ran an 11.3 in the 100, and I turned 40 last year, and I ran a 52 flat, 52.12 in the 400, and I literally did 1 day a week of running, maybe two at the most, and most of my training was CrossFit still. And so, with the amount of training that I did, I was extremely happy with the outcome. And when I asked the guy who won what his training looked like, he said he'd run 5-6 days a week. And so I was extremely satisfied and happy with my outcome. And the bottom line is, if I go out there and feel like I did my best and somebody beats me, my hats are off to them. But if I feel like I could have done better, and honestly, I don't feel like I could have done better, nor did I want to put in more time to train specifically for just that one event.
Well, and there was no age group on that either, was there?
There was, yeah, 35 to 39 still, and I was
Okay,
on the latter end.
okay, Nunu. So let's be clear. You were the fastest 35 to 39-year-old gay man.
Yeah, that's a lot. Do you know how many gay men there are in the world?
I don't, but I mean, it's still impressive. Yeah, but you were positioning it as you were just this fastest dude in the world.
I
You're the
basically am.
there's a I don't know if this is a true story. Dave Castro was chatting with you and he didn't understand why you were competing in the gay games. Is that a true story?
I think at some point he asked me about it.
He was just like, I don't get it. Why? Like that type of like not that you were competing in running, but that he just didn't make the connection
I
that
don't think a lot of people know about the gay games, and I think they started in 1978, and really it's to give people an opportunity to just train and compete, just like the CrossFit Games does. So really they don't really care if you're gay or not. Like anybody can do it. So it's all about inclusivity. So if you wanted to sign up and compete, you could.
is it only running or is it all sorts of
No,
tests of
there's probably 40 or 50 sports. I've also played soccer, but they have tennis, they have softball, they have water polo, they have swimming, they have. So my room is the fastest gay in the water for his events. So we basically live in the household of very fast individuals.
did you
For
meet
his age group, we'll
or is
clarify.
it so did you guys meet each other at the competition or did you know each
No,
other?
we've known each other for over 10 years, but the first time I went to gay games was in 2002 in Sydney, and that was 2 years after they held the actual Olympics there. So it was really a life-changing experience because same venues, and the opening ceremony was in the same stadium where they have the actual Olympics. So you walk in and there's 40,000 people, and so it was it's a week long, and you don't have to qualify, you just have to register. You have to pay, obviously, because it's not a free event. It takes a lot of coordination and volunteers and, people that actually do this for full time. And they're only every 4 years. And so Sydney was the first time I did compete, and I lived in New York at the time, and I trained right after I finished my last year in college to go on my own and compete there. And I think I did all right. I think I got a silver and a bronze, a silver in the 200 and a bronze in the 100.
So it's not, I was envisioning like this is in California because you live there and it's just a
Oh
local fun
no,
competition. This is a full deal.
full on, yeah. The one in Paris last year, I think there were over 10,000 participants in all the sports. I think the one in Sydney, there was like 14,000. The one in 2010 in Germany, in Cologne, there were, I think, 12,000. And then in 2014, they had them in Cleveland. I missed the 2006 games that were in Chicago.
And this is,
And then
there's male and female.
male and female. Yeah.
Well, that's really
Male and
cool.
female. Yeah.
So what was the transition like for you from being this incredibly fast runner to CrossFit?
Yeah. So that actually took a little while. I ran track in college, and it wasn't a surprise. Like, I knew I was fast in high school, but I'd never dedicated myself to running because I prioritized soccer and volleyball. Those were my primary sports in high school. And then I walked onto the track team my sophomore year and ran for 3 years. Ended up being top 10 all time in the 400. Ran relays, finished third at conference. So I was all Big West sprint of the year. Ran a 47.7 in the 400. And then after college is when I moved to New York, and I lived in New York for 2.5 years. So there was no CrossFit then, or at least that I was aware of. But I played competitive volleyball then, did my first half marathon, then saw triathlon, fell in love with it. I was like, oh, I want to do a triathlon. Moved to San Diego 2004, started doing triathlons in 2006. And in 2008 was the first time, is when I started doing CrossFit. So that's sort of the timeline.
So I want to ask you a little bit about this, and
Yeah.
you know me, I love you, we're friendly, so I never want to offend.
Sure.
You're super fit, super athletic. Was there anything in high school, were you aware that you were gay? Was it challenging to be a part of that team, or were you, I don't know when you came out, all that stuff?
Yeah.
I don't know how to ask that appropriately, but I'm curious.
You're fine. You're fine. Thank you for being respectful. In high school, I think I knew, but I wasn't sure. I think a lot of people say that they feel like they're different in high school, or like once they find out or realize that they're gay. I didn't really think I was different, and I think sports always gave me a sense of belonging, so in that sense, I didn't really come out until my college years. And even then, I didn't fully come out until I think I lived in San Francisco. I had an internship there between my 4th and 5th year. So the transition, I think, was slow. I kind of started realizing it in high school, came to terms in college, and really I fully accepted it like just shortly after college, I would say.
Was it a tough to come out? Is that a hard thing to do?
Extremely. Yeah. There's a good book called Velvet Rage that talks about the process of coming out. And I read that recently, probably about a year or two ago. And I think one thing that like people don't realize is that, like you said, it's a tough thing for people to go through, and everybody's journey is slightly different. Like some people don't come out until they're like 65, which is crazy. They have like whole lives, that they live, and they live in denial, that entire time until they can finally get to a point where they can be themselves. So for me, it wasn't necessarily about that, but once I kind of realized it, it was like, okay, now what, and the first thing I think I did is in my freshman year in college, I wrote my parents a 7-page letter. This is before the internet.
7 pages.
I had a lot
how
to say.
detailed. Yeah.
I had a lot to say, I think. And then
I
that was the first.
Hey, Mom, I'm gay. And
it wasn't that simple. And I think it was before cell phones. So this was in 98, 99. And I think the process has always been a little bit challenging. I think nowadays I don't shy away from who I am, but I think there's always a fear of being accepted and belonging. And And then and I think being afraid of like not just hate crimes, but people judging you and not accepting you for who you are. And so that I think prevents a lot of people from coming out early in life, and just really being okay with who they are as an individual.
Yeah, I think I've gone through my life, and I just like I say this as a nice way. It's like I don't care. Like I don't care
Yeah,
about, you know what I mean? Like so I don't realize it because I'm just like I don't care if you're gay, I don't care if you're black, you're white, like it doesn't
yeah,
matter to me.
totally.
But there are people out there obviously that are not the same. So I
A
can
lot of
understand.
our country, if you think about it, you know, and the thing is like it takes a lot of courage to come out, because one is you have to face the fact that you are different and you are not the norm and you are not what society accepts. What society's view of normal is like, a man and a woman, and that's the traditional family values. And the thing is like, yeah, we might live in a slightly smaller bubble. Even within CrossFit, I think it's widely accepted. And even where I live in San Diego, it's widely accepted, but you go to about 60-70% of the rest of the country, and it's probably not something that you can be open about, not to the same level that I am in my everyday life now.
Has it impacted you? I mean, this show is primarily about coaches. You're one of the
Yeah,
best coaches in the world. You're on the CrossFit seminar staff. You're also one of the, I mean, you're one of the fastest men in the world, right? We don't have to classify it as gay or straight. And you're also very, very fit. Has that impacted any of that at all, especially your coaching?
the coaching being gay, you mean?
Yeah.
I think I approach coaching as my opportunity to make a difference, and it doesn't matter like what I do in my personal life. That shouldn't impact how we interact in the gym. If it happens that we end up becoming friends, then yeah, I might let you into a little bit of my personal life. And even with seminars, like seminars, we're there to provide a service. We're there to teach a seminar. We're there to make a difference in people's lives. We're there to make people better. So like what I bring to the table is like my coaching expertise and my experience. The fact that that I am gay has nothing to do with what I deliver over the course of the weekend. If during some of the side chats, like people come up to me and tell me, it's like, oh yeah, I know you're gay and I'm gay, which has happened a lot of times.
Does
CrossFit
it?
did Yeah, because CrossFit did that video on me. They did the YouTube video. So it's like a
Right.
27-minute video, and obviously got a lot of views, and people got to know me a little bit more intimately. And so I still get people that come up to me or message me, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram. And even people at seminars is like, oh, I know you looked familiar, but I couldn't remember why. And then they put two and two together. And I think that came out about 2015. So it's been a few years since, but I still get messages of like, thank you so much for being who you are, for being inspiring, or, being openly gay, and just not like letting anything get in the way of, pursuing your dreams and passions. And that's really what I want to, put out there for people.
Last question on the topic.
Okay.
Is there pressure? You are the fittest gay man on the planet. That's how I would introduce you. Is there pressure involved there? Just like anyone, right? Like they're the fittest of anything.
Sure.
That's impressive.
Yeah. So I think in my age group I am now, but actually, unbeknowingly, I ended up wearing this, which is the LGBT leaderboard. And so we had a separate leaderboard for anybody in the LGBT community
Oh,
that took
really?
the
That's
open
cool.
scores. Yeah. So I did win it last year. This year I finished third, and there was a couple people that finished ahead of me. One of them is a games athlete. She was a California um, individual athlete, Eka something. I forget exactly what her name is. I think is a firefighter. It was her first time at the
Yeah, you
games
know what?
last year.
Sure, I judged her. Sure.
Yeah, you know who I'm
Yeah,
talking about, right?
yeah, yeah.
So she finished ahead of me. I think I won 2 or 3 of the workouts. I think she won 2 or 3 of the workouts. And I think there's a guy here, Eric Evans. I think he's been on a couple teams, and he finished ahead of me as well. So, but in terms of pressure, as an athlete, I think I've always competed on a team, and my teams have always been extremely accepting. Although there's always been a fine line, because I've also been on teams with people that are, very Christian, and there's always been a topic of conversation around acceptance. And even like if I decide to get married, whether or not they would come to my wedding. And it's probably stuff you don't think about, but we've had these discussions, and like I don't judge them. It's like their beliefs are their beliefs, mine are mine, but at the same time is like, like the fact that they wouldn't come to my wedding just because I'm gay, like kind of blows me away, but in terms of as an athlete, this will be the first time competing as an individual athlete. I'm super excited, like I qualified a couple of years ago, but I went on the team. And so I'm excited to just do the best that I can and inspire as many people as possible.
Yeah. So speaking of that, you're going to the CrossFit Games, 40 to 44-year-old division.
Yep.
You and I worked together recently, but prior to that, I saw you at the Tony Robbins seminar. We both had an amazing time.
Yep.
And you said it was at that seminar that you decided you're going to win the CrossFit Games this year.
That is true. Yeah. After that, I was like, why not me? I made that decision. It's like, hey, I'm going to go all in. I think in December when I turned 40, I was about to turn 40. I was like, wow, this is a perfect time to do this. I have a lot of life changes coming up in the next year. And so I was like, I haven't done this before. I've qualified before, but I haven't gone. And this might be the last opportunity that I get to compete at this level. I'm starting a family, so that's going to take priority. And so I just decided to go all in, and I was able to qualify in the open, finish top 200. And then in the age group qualifier, I think I finished 4th or 5th, and I got my official invitation. Video submission was accepted, and I've already gone and accepted. I think today was the deadline to accept the invitation.
Yeah, we left that, and then that Monday you went and won 19.5 in our age group. I'm in the same
40
age
to
group.
44.
Yeah, I didn't qualify for the games, but hold on a second. You brushed over something. You're starting a family?
Yeah, correct.
What's going on? Tell me about that.
That means having a baby. This has been, again, another lifelong dream of mine, and something that I've wanted to do. I haven't really shared it to too many people, but then recently I just decided to be more open about it. It's been a lengthy process, and so I have a surrogate. I had an egg donor. We froze the embryos, and actually this Friday we're doing the embryo transfer, and hopefully we'll get pregnant, and have a baby early next year. So that's kind of like my timeline. Part of the reason why I wanted to make this the top priority for now, because the level of commitment, discipline, training, and sacrifice that it takes to compete at this level is probably not something that I have a lot more in me. And honestly, I compete because I'm still blown away by the things that I can do. It comes to me as a surprise. I've been doing this for 10, 11 years, since 2008.
I have questions about this.
Yes.
So you are impregnating a woman.
Yep.
And now she's going to be a surrogate. Did you know this person?
Yep. Oh, no, I met her through the agency. So my friends had twins last year through this agency here in San Diego. And so last year I sold my condo because I needed to have the money for the whole process, because it's not a cheap venture, I should say. And then when I got back from my trip in Europe last summer, I went to Europe for 5 weeks. I contacted the agent, told them what my timeline was and what I was intending to do. And so we got started finding the appropriate surrogate, the appropriate egg donor, and then getting everything in order to get us to where we're at today.
Is the surrogate the same as the egg donor, or is that different?
Two different entities. Yeah, and they both live close to here. So I haven't met them in person, but we did a FaceTime with both of them, and then I'll meet the surrogate this Friday when I go to the appointment before I leave for the seminar this weekend.
So meet the baby mama before you leave.
Yeah, we FaceTime before and we chat.
So you've never met the egg donor. So the mother of your child. Well, I mean, there's 2 moms, right?
Because it's just the egg donor. The surrogate is, she's playing an extremely important role.
It's her genetics, right?
It's the egg donor's genetics.
Right, but then it goes into
not the surrogate. The surrogate is just the oven. Essentially, she's the storage facility.
So,
don't take that out of context, because her role is probably more important than anything and
absolutely. Anyone. But the egg donor, that's the baby's mom.
That's the genetics.
Biological, right?
Correct.
So, was it important that she's fit?
Yeah, it was important that she's fit. I spent more time researching the egg donor than I did the surrogates.
Yeah,
And
because you want good genetics, right? You
I
want a
do
good
want
looking
genetics.
baby.
Jason, don't take this the wrong way, but I wanted to have a tall baby, or at least above average. So one of my requirements was that the surrogate or the egg donor was going to have to be above 5'6".
And what was she?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it needed to be. That was kind of one of the filters that I used when I was looking through the database. And then originally I wanted somebody that was Portuguese, and I had a really hard time finding anybody that was Portuguese. There were some that were like a quarter Portuguese or an eighth Portuguese. It was always like a mutt, a combination. And usually what ended up happening is they were not above 5'6".
Oh, I gotcha. So you're
So
100% Portuguese.
yeah, just about. I think my grandpa was a little bit German. So like an eighth German. I think he was half German, so it makes me an eighth German.
So we're gonna have Papa Nuno in about 10 months.
Yep. Hopefully if all goes well, fingers crossed.
Well,
That's the goal.
congratulations on that. That's really awesome. We were talking that you have a lot of change. Is that the biggest change you have going on?
Oh yeah, that's the biggest change. I can't think of anything bigger.
That's what was the deciding factor? What really made you decide to do that?
I think the age looming, like knowing that I was turning 40, and this is something that I wanted to do for like my entire life. And going back to something that we discussed earlier, part of the coming out process, that was probably one of the hardest things to deal with, is whether or not I would ever have or be able to have a family, And so, whether it was accepting or dealing or being able to kind of wrap my head around it. And then last year, I think what always held me back was whether or not I could do it financially. And then when I had a condo that I lived in, and if I sold that condo, essentially give me the money I needed to be able to do it. So then all of a sudden, it's like, when you talk about taking the things away that limit you from doing what you want to do, I no longer had things that got in the way. It's like, well, okay, well, now I'm going to sell this condo. I'll have, the money that I'll need, and then let's move forward.
So it was a big decision. I mean, you really
It's a
made some
huge decision.
sacrifices.
Yeah,
You
it's
you
huge.
you have a roommate there now. You mentioned that you live with.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you had to go from living in your own place to sharing
Yeah.
a place.
And that was actually intended because he needed to find a place and I wanted to sell my place. And so that kind of, the timing of it was good. But then in the next 6 months, everything's going to change again because I'm going to have to find a place that's going to support having a kid. And we live in a really nice place overlooking the water here in San Diego, overlooking the bay in Little Italy, close to where the old gym used to be. But this is not really like a family, like where I can have a kid, So
Gotcha.
that's going to have to change, obviously.
Well, you are welcome in Naples, Florida.
Thank you.
If you want to
There's
start
a
an
there's a
endurance
there's a
program.
yeah, right. There's a friend of mine I think that lives near Naples, Connie Hamrick. She actually is a CrossFitter too. So she's a friend of mine that lived in New York and now I think lives in the Naples area. And I think she still does CrossFit. I'd have to circle back with her and find out if she still does or not.
A lot of people are always interested when I have people that are on the CrossFit staff about hearing their journey to get on staff.
Yeah.
When did yours start?
Mine started 2011, and I coached the endurance seminars before that. So I coached for CrossFit Endurance. I started teaching those seminars in 2010. I did, back then, was with Brian McKenzie and Carl Borg. And then, I started CrossFit in 2008. And between 2008, 2010, I think I did all the seminars that were available. I was just so gung-ho about
That's what
learning.
I did. Every time one came to the Northeast, I took it.
Right, same. And so then in 2009, when I did the CrossFit Endurance seminar, they were looking for like assistant coaches and people that intern. And considering my background running track in college and then running endurance events, triathlons for like 3 or 4 years, it was sort of a perfect fit. So I interned, became an assistant coach, and then became a head coach for CrossFit Endurance in 2010. And then I was running the seminars kind of like as a flow master. And then in 2011, I remember there was a seminar in Houston, and I had 53 people, and I was the head coach. And
By
I had
yourself?
I had an
One,
assistant coach and I had an intern. So if you can imagine, that ratio is not ideal for that type of a seminar. And I was like, well, this is either going to be really great or it's going to be a shit show. And so I kind of let people know. I was like, hey, when I tell you we need to be back in the chairs by this time, it needs to happen. It's like there's no wiggle room, right? Like when we're going outside to do video shootings, we need to go outside. When we're inside, like reviewing video, we need to be like on time. And so that was essentially the seminar that prompted me to pursue seminar staff, because the endurance seminars back then weren't that size. There were maybe 10, 15, 20, 25 people at the most. And so what I realized is, like, I really love teaching and being in front of people, and I want to have a platform or have access to where I can do that on a regular basis. And I knew CrossFit seminars, the level ones, there were about 40, 50, 60 people on a regular basis, especially around the time that I got on staff, 2012, 13, and 14. And so in 2011, I emailed, I think, Dave, and Dave was super important in helping me get started in CrossFit. I met him at the 2008 games, and then he facilitated me getting my level one, which I did like literally the month after. At the time, I wasn't really doing CrossFit. And then so when I emailed them and wanted to pursue it, he got me in contact with Pat Sherwood, who was in charge of the intern process then. And then I interned, and after my second internship, I got hired.
that's fast. I was just talking with Chris Spieler and Doug Zakaris, and
Nice.
Doug took like 7 internships.
Holy
to get all. Yeah, that's really fast for. It's a credit to probably how well you were coaching back then. I took the endurance seminar quite a few times.
Yeah.
The first time I took it was with Carl, and then the second time I think it was Brian Diaz.
Yep.
But still not a good runner, so it didn't work for me.
Well, you got to practice. You can't just expect it to it's not an overnight effect.
Do you ever hear from Brian McKenzie anymore?
No, not as much. Are you still there?
Yeah,
okay,
I'm here.
Sorry, I had a phone call. I saw him last time I saw him was at somebody's Mark Holman's funeral. I don't know if you remember Mark Holman. He was part of the endurance seminar staff, and he had a heart attack in his sleep, and early 50s. Yeah, bike, like a super fit, not triathlete, road bike. And then so I saw him here. The funeral was probably about a year, maybe 2 years ago. But we still keep in contact. Like, sometimes I shoot him a text and just check in to see how he's doing. I know, like, they moved CrossFit Endurance away from CrossFit, so it's now called Power Speed Endurance, and I think his focus has now become on breathing techniques, and they're doing seminars and focus on that. Yeah.
What's the longest distance you've ever run?
I've ran a marathon, or I kind of walked part of it.
Was that as part of the triathlon, or you ran an individual marathon?
I ran an individual marathon. I ran 2008, I think it was, the same year I started doing CrossFit. I was deep in the triathlons, sort of endurance world. I've done a lot of halves. And then I was like, oh, let's do a full, and I think part of it is because I don't really know. I think it was like a bucket list, I think actually it was 2009, because at the time I think I'd already started doing CrossFit, and I was more like, it's like, oh, let's see, like I do CrossFit, I can run a marathon, So all I did was like short intervals, long intervals, and didn't necessarily do any longer runs. And so the last half of the race, I started out really well. Like my first half was 1:33, and I finished in 3:49. So you can do the math and know. Like,
Still a great time. Still a great time.
I know, which is crazy. It's like, and I have no desire to do another one. I have nothing to prove now in my life in that regard.
Well, and you're a short distance runner.
Correct.
By nature, I would say.
Correct. Yep. I try to run the shorter distance, like the 100 and the 200 in my coach in college, when she's like, no, you're more of a 400 meter runner. So she made me a 400 meter runner, and she was right.
What's your best ever 400?
47.7.
47.7?
Yep.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So you're ridiculously strong. Do you think, it's similar muscles, and muscle fibers being used in that sprint distance? I mean, you clean well over 3:15. You can go on Nuno's Instagram and see it. You have amazing technique. I know when Roz was watching one of your videos. She's like, well, no shit, he cleans so much. He's got, look at his torso. It's so upright. So is it just related to your genetic predisposition, or have you worked really hard in addition to that?
I'd say both. I wish it was genetics, and then I wish I could say that. Like, and think athletics was more on my dad's side of the family. My grandpa was a professional soccer player for a
So you
short
got
amount
some
of time.
professional genes in you.
Short amount of time, like literally maybe a year or two. And then my dad dabbled in judo. He had 2 black belts. But if you ask him, he's like, I wasn't athletic. I'm like, oh, okay, well, your judo black belts say otherwise. And then I've been an athlete my entire life, whether it was track, soccer, volleyball, triathlons, half marathons. And I think genetics has a part to do it, but I think what probably makes me stand apart from other people is the resiliency, the hard work, and the dedication, the sacrifice, and the discipline. I'm probably one of the most disciplined people you're going to meet. And I think that's one of the things that I can pass along to others too, that I can help others like learn how to. It's like, hey, this is where I want to get to, but I'm over here. But it wasn't easy. Like, I didn't just become strong overnight. I don't think I cleaned over 300 the first 3 or 4 years that I did CrossFit.
Well, I've been doing CrossFit 12 years, and I've never cleaned over 300.
But it took a while. And same thing with a 200-pound snatch too. It's like, it took a long time. And the snatch is probably like my worst lift. And it's like, when it comes to technique and range of motion, that's where I am most challenged. Clean is probably my best lift, and front squat is probably my best lift, which is, they translate well. But how did I get that strong? Did my athletic background help? Yeah, I think it helped playing sports growing up and having the mindset of what it's like to be an athlete, especially competing in college. Having to balance both being a track and field athlete and being a collegiate a college student, and having to balance the two, has given me sort of the mindset of how to succeed at this level, because CrossFit sucks, like, to be good at it, you have to be willing to embrace the suck. It's like, it's not fun sometimes, the stuff that we do. And it's like, you have to be willing to go to like what we call that pain cave, to be uncomfortable, to be like, what they say is like, be comfortable being uncomfortable, and a lot of people don't like or want to do that. And I've overcome a lot of adversity in my life. And like, I wouldn't say that's a happy place, but it's a place that I know how to get to.
When you say you're disciplined, in what ways are you more disciplined than the average person?
More ways than average person. I'd probably say routine, doing what I say I'm going to do, nutrition, recovery protocols, working out regularly, not making excuses, asking for feedback and asking for help, and not thinking that I could do everything on my own.
What does training look like as a 40-year-old man that made it to the CrossFit Games? Is it the same style of training and volume as the best in the world, the individuals, or is it a little less?
No, it's a little less. I tried to do what they were doing, but I don't think my body can handle it. And I think part of it is like, as you know, I have to manage the travel component of it. Traveling definitely wears on my body, and it definitely makes training a little bit more challenging when I have to remember that if I work all weekend long, my Monday might be a little bit different than a regular Monday. In terms of the volume, I've significantly cut back, especially in the past year or two, to the point where, like, the intensity needs to be high, the volume, it just varies based on how I'm feeling. So most days I do one session. Some days I can do a little bit more. Some days I'll split that session. But, a lot of technique and a lot of dynamic stretching, focusing on mobility. And some days I feel good, or like this past Friday, I didn't have travel this past weekend, so I was able to do 2 sessions. But I also need to be careful. Like Saturday I trained and I was like starting to feel beat up from the week. Sunday I rested completely, and then Monday I worked out and I got a little like a tweak in my shoulder. So it's like, I have to be careful. It's like, hey, if I'm not feeling great, it might not be the best time to push.
For those listening, they're like, oh, I want to go to the games and I want to train hard. How bad does your body hurt?
It hurts. It hurts, and it varies. I think once I scaled back a little bit of the volume, it hurt a little bit less. But when I push the intensity, as you know, it's like doing open workouts. It's not easy, but I think there's always nagging pains. It's like, oh, my hip or my knee or my shoulder. You know, I've had ongoing shoulder issues probably for the past 5, 6, 7 years, including PRP, cortisone shots, like regular body work. I see either acupuncture or my ART specialist once a week, sometimes during the open or like leading up to regionals or the games last year or 2 years ago. Sometimes I would see them both in the same week. So it's an investment, you know? And then also the nutrition component, like making sure that I'm getting enough food, quality foods, and I'm not eating a bunch of crap. Because if I do, then it's just going to cause inflammatory,
Yeah, you need to
response in
eat
my
more. We
body.
talked about that.
I have been. And since we've worked together, I've been tracking my foods, you know, and what I was realizing is like, you know, even like I even ordered a Whoop to track my recovery. And like even in my daily activity, like that day on Friday, I burned over 7,000 calories, you know, which was nuts in just my daily activity, 2 workouts, you know, but it was like, even on a regular day where I might only do 1 workout, it's like I'm burning over 5,000 calories. And so like my new goal is to consume over 4,000 calories, which is hard when you're eating clean. I have a weakness for French fries. And I do have somebody looking at my food too. And she evaluated, gave me some feedback, and it's like, hey, you definitely should bump up the amount of carbs that you're getting, especially with the amount of training and volume that we're doing currently. And I was like, yeah, that's a good point.
More orange soda.
I hardly do that. I don't think I've had one since.
You know, I'm going back to Houston, I think at the end of June. I was like, we have to go back to El
Are
Chapo.
you?
Yeah, that place was
Yeah.
so good. I loved it. I mean, you are investing. You win the CrossFit Games this year. You've spent more money than you're going to win, right?
Oh yeah, sure.
What's
Absolutely.
what's the prize money for the number 1 male in the 40s?
No, honestly, I don't know.
I don't even know if there is prize money for
I
that.
think there is. I think I remember last year I looked for the 35, 39 was like 25,000. And
Oh,
then I
that's
think
substantial.
but then it goes down. I think it's like 5,000 after that for the 40 and 44 in every age group after. It might be 10,000, but honestly, I don't know. Like the money is not what motivates me. Even when we won the games, yeah, we got a chunk of like, you know, a nice chunk of cash, but it wasn't necessarily what the goal, like the end goal was not to win so I can win this money. The goal is like, let me push my body as far as I can to see what I'm like truly my potential is. You know, what am I capable of doing? Have I done everything I could possibly done to perform at the highest level, at the like, you know, get the most out of my body?
With as busy as you are and all, you know, these changes you have coming up, what is something that you have become better at saying no to?
French fries. What have I become better at saying no to? I think I'm still working on that, you know. Becoming better at, that's a hard question. I'm not sure I have an answer for you.
All right, that's fine. But French fries, what's your go-to French fry? Like, what is the best for
I,
Nuno?
I like them well done, you know, so it's a little crispy. I don't like them soggy. I don't like them soft, and I like them thin cuts. You know, I
Is
don't
there
like the potato doughy ones. I like them like crispy and
is there a
thin.
restaurant in mind that you think of?
You know, like my go-to cheese is like a carne asada fries. There's a Mexican restaurant here that I'll go to. It's a little out of the way. I used to live in that area, and every once in a while, I'll still make that exception to go out there and get it just for that. Or if I'm happen to be in the area, I might just stop by, you know, just to make sure they're still the quality that I remembered.
You need to
There's,
get yourself an air fryer. Chop
I
up
know
some
my roommate has
potatoes.
one actually.
Yeah,
And do what?
you can chop up some potatoes. You can have potatoes. You need the carbs,
Yep.
and make yourself some fries.
Well, no, sounds easy enough, huh? I just learned how to use the rice cooker.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds easy because Roz does it. So you know,
Uh-huh.
I'm sure it's a little more complicated than I'm envisioning. With all this preparation, what are some big investments you've made? I mean, you mentioned the body work, a Whoop now. What other investments do you have to make just to be as healthy and as fit as you are?
I think those are the biggest ones, you know. Sometimes my social life, you know, And I think the nutrition's dialed in. It feels like the recovery. I feel like even the Whoop, when I told a couple of people about it, like my coaches and stuff, it's like, oh, I'm not sure. You need it because you have a good understanding of how you feel, how your body's recovering. But I wanted to be certain, and I wanted to leave no stone unturned. So I did decide to invest in the Whoop.
One thing I've heard about the Whoop is people see their recovery as low, for example. Oh, I didn't get enough recovery. But then mentally, that impacts their workout.
Sure. Yeah.
Can you overcome that?
Yeah, definitely. I think what I feel is probably going to be more important than what the Whoop data tells me, because I feel like I can still have a good gauge of what I'm doing and how I'm recovering. I think the sleep is probably the most important. I think my body just naturally wakes up after usually like 7 hours of sleep, 7-8 hours. And even if I try to stay in bed, I think I just kind of wrestle, and it's almost like detrimental. It's like, well, at this point I need to get up and start being productive, And so sleep is one that I think I could always use more of. What was the question? Circle back. I forgot.
I took you off topic. That's all right. What are some unusual habits that you have?
Unusual habits. I started doing the cold shower at the end of my shower, but you probably already knew that. I think we talked about that.
Yeah.
So I'll start my shower in the morning, with a warm shower, and then usually the last 30 seconds to a minute are cold.
You need to go full out and go all cold.
Right from the beginning.
That's what I do in the morning.
That's not even a shower. I would just be rinsing off.
Yeah, my morning shower is not, I shower before I go to bed. That's just like, it's
wake up
for that purpose. Yeah, it's not to get cleaner.
Okay, got it.
So I just get in, get out. Are there other things that you took from Tony Robbins that you implement daily?
Things that I implement daily, the priming has been super important. I try to do that every morning. I've been pretty consistent. I'd probably say 95% of the time I've been doing that. I feel like it gets me in a great place mentally, emotionally, just kind of focused for the day. It's like a meditation to me. Start off with some gratitude and then thinking about the things that I want to accomplish, things that I'm grateful for that I've been able to accomplish, and then, goals and people that I want to share this energy with throughout the day.
Last thing I like to ask every guest, any books that you recommend the listeners check out?
Yeah, currently I'm reading Start With Why, by Simon Sinek.
It's one of my favorites.
And that was something that was recommended to somebody based on, I started doing Audible from what you had told me. It's hard to keep up with Audible and podcasts. So I've almost finished the first book, and actually my goal is to finish it in this month in May. So it keeps it free, so I can just get one free book every month, I think.
That's right.
And so
you have to, the trick is you have to speed it up. You have to listen at like 1.25 to 1.5.
But do you still feel like you retain the information though?
Yeah, in fact, I feel when I listen at a faster pace, I have to pay more attention.
Oh yeah, that's good. I like that. But usually I'll have it when I'm driving or like background when I'm working. And so I guess, I'll try it.
Especially like I go for a lot of walks throughout the day just to get outside. That's when I throw these headphones on.
Oh yeah, nice.
Well, it's been really great catching up. Anything else you wanted to touch upon while you have this audience? No,
not really. I've been really impressed with your podcast. I actually subscribed to it. I think I've only listened to one of them, but
who'd you listen to? Was it a person or?
I think it was one of the first ones. I can't remember off the top of my head. I did remember I've listened to I think two, because one is the one that you sent to us right before the seminar, and I think I listened to one since I downloaded the podcast.
Well, I thank you. Maybe you can listen to it on your training days when you're getting ready to hit some heavy lifts. Hear me talk in the background, but it's been great. I really enjoy the times we get to work together. So I hope that we get to work together again soon. You bring an incredible energy every time you're there, and you're a very motivating and inspiring individual. So I really appreciate you, and thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Jason.
And I'm excited to see you at the CrossFit Games. So
yeah, are you going to be there?
You know, we're not sure if we'll be out there judging. We don't really know what's going on yet this year, but one way or the other, if I'm not out there judging, I will be streaming you live on my show, and I look forward. I know how important it is for you, and I'm excited for it. So thanks for coming on, and best of luck with that, and Papa Nuno.
Thanks, Jason. I appreciate it.